Within a 5-year span, 3 of the most established communities in Medina were erased. These wealthy, thriving tribes didn't just decline, they were systematically wiped off the map through a sequence of forced exile, enslavement, and mass execution. When Muhammad arrived in Medina, the city's political landscape was fractured. To build a stable base of power, he needed to integrate the city's 3 affluent Jewish tribes, the Banu Kainuka, the Banu Nadir, and the Banu Qurayza, into his new social order. Muhammad presented his message as the fulfillment of their own scriptures, but the tribes remained unconvinced. They scrutinized his claims and publicly rejected his status as a prophet. In response, Muhammad's tone shifted from invitation to warning, as he began telling the Jews to beware the same divine vengeance that had already fallen upon his enemies in Mecca. This theological rejection created a rift, just as Muhammad faced a mounting economic crisis. His followers, many of whom were refugees with no property, were struggling to survive. The wealth of the Jewish tribes, their gold, their arms, and their fertile lands, offered a solution to the movement's growing financial needs. This combination of religious defiance and economic necessity transformed the tribes into a political liability. Their independence became an obstacle, and their assets became a target, making a systematic purge the next logical step for the expanding state. In 624, a physical altercation in a local marketplace provided the first opening. A dispute between a Muslim and a Jew escalated into a double homicide. Muhammad used this isolated incident as a legal pretext to declare that the entire Banu Kayunaka tribe had broken their treaty, effectively declaring war on the whole community. Muhammad's forces besieged the Banu Kayunaka in their quarters for 15 days. When the tribe finally surrendered, Muhammad's initial command was for the execution of every adult male in the tribe. A local chieftain named Abdallah ibn Ubay intervened. Recognizing the tribe as his long-standing allies, he physically grabbed Muhammad by the collar and refused to let go until the prophet agreed to spare them. Abdallah warned that he was a man who understood how quickly political fortunes could change. Muhammad eventually relented, but the mercy was limited. He spared their lives on the condition of immediate exile. The Banu Kainuka were forced to leave for Syria within 3 days, leaving behind their homes, their tools, and their wealth, all of which were seized and distributed as sacred booty. The massacre was avoided, but the mission was accomplished. The state had successfully field-tested a new playbook: identify a pretext, isolate an opponent, and convert their entire existence into liquid assets for the movement. By 625, the Muslims were reeling from a humiliating military defeat at the Battle of Uhud. To maintain his authority and restore the morale of his followers, Muhammad needed a victory that would provide both a sense of divine favor and a fresh influx of resources. He targeted the second tribe, the Banu Nadir, using a pretext that was impossible to verify. He claimed an angel informed him of a secret plot by the tribe to assassinate him by dropping a stone from a roof. Despite the lack of witnesses or physical evidence, he ordered the tribe to evacuate on pain of death. During the subsequent siege, Muhammad employed a tactic of environmental warfare that horrified the locals. He specifically ordered the complete burning of the tribe's date palm trees. These trees were the lifeblood of the desert economy, and their destruction signaled that the rules of engagement had changed. The Banu Nadir surrendered and were banished. Unlike the previous purge, where the spoils were shared among the followers, Muhammad kept the tribe's valuable lands and date groves exclusively for himself and his closest inner circle, claiming a divine revelation sanctioned the decision. The threshold for state violence had dropped. The state no longer needed a physical fight in a market to justify a purge. An unverified vision was now sufficient. As the pretexts grew thinner, the rewards for the leadership grew larger. In 627, after the Battle of the Trench, the final Jewish tribe remained, the Banu Qurayza. Although they had remained neutral and even lent tools to the Muslims for the city's defense, Muhammad turned his army toward their strongholds the moment the Meccan invaders withdrew. This assault was framed as a direct command from the angel Gabriel. The accusation was a vague breach of treaty, though historical records suggest the tribe had refused to actively join the Meccan coalition against Muhammad. The political climate in Medina had also shifted. Abdullah ibn Ubay, the only man who had successfully restrained Muhammad's violence in the past, had lost his influence. With no internal opposition left to argue for mercy, the tribe's fate was sealed. When the tribe surrendered, boys were checked for puberty. Those showing maturity were classified as combatants and sorted for execution. This led to a brutal massacre. 800 to 900 men were led to the market and beheaded in trenches. The surviving women and children were sold into slavery. Their homes, weapons, and household goods were confiscated and distributed as rewards to the Muslim community, marking the total liquidation of the tribe. The complete removal of internal political dissent had allowed the state's response to opposition to reach its logical conclusion. The simmering grudge that began with a religious rejection had finished with a methodical, systematic slaughter. By the end of 627 AD, the demographic makeup of Medina was unrecognizable. The Jewish population, which had been a foundational part of the city for generations, was gone. The evolution of this purge reveals a clear pattern. What started as a theological dispute and a bruised ego over religious rejection was channeled into a methodical system for seizing wealth and eliminating political rivals. These events were permanently codified into religious scripture, ensuring they would be remembered not as political acts, but as the execution of divine justice. In chapter 33, verse 26, the text describes the fall of the Banu Qurayza. It states that Allah brought them down from their strongholds and cast panic into their hearts, specifically taking credit for the fact that some were slain and others were taken captive. This historical record institutionalized a personal and political grudge into a divine mandate. By framing these purges as acts of God, the state created an enduring precedent for how all future dissent and non-belief would be handled.